Hello, my friends. This is Lada from AstroladaOfficial, and my guest today is financial astrologer Sama. Hello, Sama.
Hello, good to be back again, my friends from Soviet America. We're going to go over the predictions that I covered with Lada in the interview we did together called the Climate Change Wars because they're very relevant. I'll probably do a more updated video on that later this year, but we're definitely going to touch into some of the predictions I made on that because a lot of them are very current right now. Of course, we're also going to talk about gold and its rise, which is a prediction I made in that video, right? So that's why we're going to talk about those predictions, war predictions, a lot of things that were covered then. So I'm going to give you some updates on that, as well as, of course, what's going to happen with markets in the second quarter, right? They seem to be pulling down and dipping a bit. So is that
Mhm.
going to continue? What are the energetics behind the dip? When do those energetics stop? Right, and how does that seem to be progressing in the future? So what I'm going to do is share my screen and we're going to take a look at the predictions themselves. And so this should be visible. So what we said was that money would flow into the United States because of civil unrest and international war. And the basis behind that is, well, if there's bombs going off in your bank in Europe, you're going to send the money where there's not bombs going off. And the US is not at this point in time directly involved. They are involved, but not directly involved in the conflict. Right? We have a solar maximum this decade, which will then change into a minimum, and that's leading to all kinds of unpredictable weather. They're going to tell you it's because of your gas stove, which is nonsense, but it's because of other things happening much larger outside of their control. And we might even get into that if I have time, or I might just give you a recommendation that goes into that a little bit more. But we see that that is continuing to take place. As some of you might know, the planet Uranus has conjoined Jupiter, which we'll talk about as well. That planet, Uranus, when it is an exact aspect, particularly harsh ones, we see things like tornadoes, building collapses, earthquakes. So these are some of the things we've seen just in the past couple of weeks as Jupiter has joined with Uranus. We've seen some earthquakes. We've even seen some, excuse me, we've even seen some stuff in the air related to bombs and warfare as well, which I'll touch on. So a lot of this volatility, it's civil unrest, that is tied to a lot of this economic inequality. I'm going to share another image with you guys.
Isn't it the exact day of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction? Bitcoin was halved,
Yes, yeah,
but
the Bitcoin
nothing
the bit
happened. Yeah.
so the Bitcoin halving, a lot of people will say that that affects the Bitcoin price. That's more of the mechanics of the inflationary mechanics of Bitcoin. So what happens with inflation, it's more of a long-term impact when you actually see that pan out. What that's going to lead to is an increase in the price of Bitcoin in the long run. And I'll talk about some of the energetics that are actually affecting the price of Bitcoin as well. So you guys will see that moving forward. I don't know why this slide. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So the top 1% of US earners now have more wealth than the middle class. Okay. And this is in part why I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. You see, most people, especially the spiritualists, think I'm just a money guy or that economics is just about money. Wrong. This might sound like it's bragging, but it is what it is. I just see deeper than that. Economics is about the ego, and it's about the psychology of the human. For me and for the best at this, that's what it's about. The average person is going to look at this and go, oh, this is just about money. The top 1% are making more money. Good for them. No, this is a confirmation of the prediction that civil unrest will increase. And you guys are seeing that in the world as well. Not only that, this is showing we've entered there's a new phase and there's a lot more wealth that the 1% can still accrue from here. And so these people who get up on Monday morning breaking their bodies in search of the so-called American dream, they're continually getting less out of the dollars that they're working even more for because of inflation. So when you continue to get squeezed like that, eventually these people are going to end up taking to the streets to revolt than to keep playing a game they cannot win. Okay, so that is in part what's going on with economics and with the civil unrest as well.
Do you
This
think
is the
this is being
yeah,
done on purpose because they want people in a civil unrest, or?
it's complicated,
Mm,
right? Because especially you as an astrologer probably experience this where you see aspects and you can understand why humans are reacting the way or why certain things are playing out because of the aspects. You see the symbolism, you get it, similar to how a meteorologist can see clouds accumulating and go, it's probably going to rain, right? And so, right, the North Node is in Aries, people are probably going to have conflicts. Oh, surprise, there's a war. The North Node's in Aries, right? So basic even astrologers can kind of put some of these things together. But at the same time, then if you know it's going to rain, right, or if you know what the weather's going to be, can't you use that knowledge to work with that to influence your outcomes? So
mm,
the answer is it's all of the above, right? We live in an infinite universe, and these outcomes are definitely being toyed with by people who understand.
mm,
That's the point of financial astrology, to say, hey, look, here's where these trends are going. If you want to ride these trends, here they are. You have some free will, whatever that is, to participate in those trends if you so wish. If not, they're still moving in that direction with or without you. And so there's plenty of evidence to show that these aspects or things or certain events get released around these aspects.
mm,
You've seen it, right?
mhm.
Right. Mars conjoins Saturn and Iran strikes Israel,
Yes.
right? And then we have the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. There's things that have happened with crypto or even with technology that have just made my jaw drop.
Mm.
I mean, there, a lot of you people watching this might not know what this stuff is. I barely even know what it is, but I just found out about it. It's called mesh networks that came out under this conjunction. Basically, long story short, they can use low level Bluetooth energy to make your phone talk to your dishwasher or your refrigerator, to where it can bypass all of the coding of the OS system and all that. And these devices can just talk to each other now if they need to.
Mm.
So if some agency wants to turn this camera on and start listening to me without me knowing, they can do that now. So interesting timing, right? So it's like, and then you have some natural instances of earthquakes as well. Are we going to say that that's man-made or that that's natural? It's not always natural. It's not always man-made, is what I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
both.
exactly.
It's going to be. It's really dependent on that particular situation. I can't speak for all of them, obviously, but energy is definitely being used by some who are aware, and by those who are not aware, they're just affected by the energy. And so here is a, a committee, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, which is in itself more proof that corporate committees don't get anything done. But anyway, their outlook for the debt situation in the US, if you look, where they're saying that when this started and when they drafted, it was around above 100%, and that it's going to go into basically over 200% over the next 20 to 30 years. And that assumes, they don't have it here, but this assumes no wars, which were in at least two that we know of,
Yeah.
no recessions, which we had one, they just changed the definition of it, and low interest rates, which we do not have. And I did mention rates won't drop like people were predicting or saying that they would the last time I was on. Okay.
Mm.
And if you've been watching, you know we've that America is in a proxy war using Ukraine as our proxy, basically. And now that Israel's at war, the US will definitely be brought into war officially. And I'm not going to explain how that works because we'll both lose our channels. So if you've been watching me, you know that at war and at a recession has gone through, but what you might not have heard is that rates will actually end up going higher throughout the decade.
What
So
rate?
we have
What
The
rate?
interest rate in the United States.
The what?
The interest rate in the United States.
So now they're 7%, or what is it?
So the interest, I think it's about, yeah, it's about 7 right now.
You
So
think
that is
it's
gonna
higher?
have,
Wow.
that's gonna have to go higher to deal with all of this debt, actually.
Wow.
And when Jupiter is in Cancer trying the nodes in 2025 next year, that's when I'm predicting we might see some increases, but obviously, if I'm still around, come back in 2025, I'll talk more about that in specifics. But the reason that they can't lower rates and why people have been waiting for it, though, and they keep saying they might do it, and now it's clear that they can't actually do it. They've had to pause, they've had to pause, they've had to pause, is because of the debt situation. It's a damned if they do, damned if they don't. The debt costs too much. And so we still have to print money to go to war with all these countries. And so if we lower the interest rate, everyone's just going to put all their money back into the stock market like they did in 2021. And we saw how inflationary that was, especially with real estate. Then inflation would be super high. But if he keeps the interest rate too high, then the cost of debt that they owe becomes unmanageable. And so that's why since the last time I've been on, it was, we're going to pause. We're going to tell you about it next month. We're going to pause. We'll tell you about it next month. We're going to pause. They're going to keep doing that until they can't. And I'm predicting that Jupiter trying the nodes in Cancer is going to have that effect next year.
To raise the interest.
Yes.
But that
Yes.
will raise the payments they have to make on debt as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're gonna have to deal with that next year. Until they have to, they're gonna continue to pause and just keep things where they're
Yeah.
because if they increase it and make life more expensive and make their own debts more expensive for them, which affects their ability to fund war and put their guy back in for this election, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you screw over the American people again and you choose inflation and you ruin the currency. So they actually would prefer inflation, but they have to pause at this step. And
For the
another,
elections, you mean?
yes, yes, exactly.
What
And
happens if, not as an astrologer, but as an observer, if let's say let's not say names, but the guy doesn't stay there, would they say, okay, screw it, let's destroy the whole economy? What is next?
so the economy will be destroyed, but systematically. And that's part of what this whole climate change series is very much involved with. A lot of these things are intertwined in a way that people don't understand, which is why it's so confusing. And my hope is with my work in these videos to help bridge these things together and even collaborate with other people who understand more and are seeing how this is coming together. And I think as we get closer to these nexus points of life changing, we're all going to start rapidly, specifically after 2025, start understanding what's really all going on between these UFO sightings and the CBDC and it's all going to come together, but if it's not him, as I have on the slide here, I don't see very many elections left in what we call in the United States of America today.
You don't think there'll be elections?
I don't see very many in the future, not the way that we're used to.
2024,
If it's not their guy, then look, we've already seen what. How do I put this? So 2016, cyclically, if you study history, what 2016 was actually the election of a third party. And that third party is throughout history considered to be a populist uprising where the people are frustrated with the other two, and then a third one gets voted in, which is a response and actually an indicator of that increasing civil unrest that we've been talking about. This is cyclical. This happens throughout history. And so the response to that was, oh, they're not voting for us the way they used to. We can't let this happen again. again.
Again. Okay.
That's what is.
Yeah.
So there are already things happening, Lada, in the United States to where if it's not their guy and if it's the orange man, we're going to see they're not going to let American citizens rest. They are going to bother us until we throw him out again, like we did last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And they're going to make us believe that the only way we'll get peace again is if we throw him out.
Yeah.
Because if he's able to just do what he wants, he's going to get rid of a lot of them, and that's the threat. He's openly threatened them. So they're putting things in
Globalist
place right
thing.
now while this is already not a typical election. The proof is visible for people to see. This is not a normal presidential campaign. It's not normal at all. It's already distorted. We already don't have normal elections anymore in the United States. So the fix is already in. And what they would like in the future is a united Canada, Mexico, US,
Mhm.
in which, similar to the EU, they have a head of America, whom
Mhm.
you guys they don't vote for the EU, the head of the EU.
I know in Europe we're ruled without elections. Well, there's also election,
Exactly.
but whatever von der Leyen says, everyone
Mhm.
does it, and she's never been. If she's never been, she's by whoever decides to put her there, someone from the big ones there, and says, okay, she will do our bidding. It's ridiculous. So
That is
that's
what
the
they would
plan for
love
the
to
state,
see happen
the whole.
throughout all of the Americas, not just North America.
Mm.
So if you're wondering where are all these people coming from in this country, or I'm not used to seeing these people, or why is there all this social unrest with people who are of one skin color and another? It's done by to help usher in these types of scenarios in which you can't vote for that populist person and put them out,
Mm.
like has happened in the past. And they study history too. And so 2016 was an anomaly that they do not want to see again. And they have the time and the resources to, if we don't choose the right choice.
Good. And choose it for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
So we'll see. And this is in part why too there's all this civil war propaganda as well. Is because instead of the energy, which is, as we've discussed, being used to revolt against them, which it typically would be during this time, right?
Mhm.
As you know, this is very similar energy to the French Revolution and even the beginning of the Declaration of the Independence in that time period.
Yes.
So we should be revolting and, and all of that, but that energy, depending on how we respond to it, could be used and subverted to divide and conquer, and then to put the people against each other, right? To put citizen against immigrant, to put
Mhm.
black against white, to create all the polarized, all the old polarized issues,
Yeah.
man versus woman, all of the old ones. They just want to throw it on a basket and
Christians and other religions,
yeah,
anything. They destroy
anything except that.
everything now. Everything. Yeah.
Yes, everything. It's a big everything potluck of just don't pay attention to us. That's what it
Yeah.
is. That is exactly what it is. And so, yeah. So commodities, some of you guys might have seen the gold price go up like crazy. If I had time, I would even show you the cocoa chart. Like the price of cocoa just randomly, like last week, it's gone up astronomically. It's as if like you would think I paid somebody off after they saw that I put this in here. But basically, gold is at all-time highs in the second quarter of 2024, and this prediction was made at the end of 2022. And so a lot of people have asked me, is this going to continue higher, right? Or what's happening with commodities? Some people are even buying at all-time high prices. That's not really what I would recommend or do. But we need to understand the mechanics of what is happening with gold and why it's important to be buying gold and why gold is rising. And why this is in part is, yes, Jupiter in the sign of Uranus is going, in the sign of Taurus with Uranus is expanding things related to currencies. So not only do we see debt expanding, we see stocks going crazy, and we will see the metals and the price of commodity and food going up as well. And that is what we've seen, right?
Till
Food
when?
shortages, same pattern, right? And so food has continued to go up. So now what we will actually experience for a brief short of time is a little bit of relief from these highs throughout the second half of this year, but it's going to be short. Okay. And commodities themselves are likely to continue downward for a bit in 2025, but this is all very temporary. They're all going to continue higher at the end of the decade. And I will lay all that stuff out in future videos, and people on my newsletter will get all that current info. But gold is at an all-time high because there's a video on your channel and mine as well called Gold. It's about BRICS, the BRICS group, BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, right? It's South America. They are a big reason why gold is going up, and the unrest itself in currencies. Part of what happened with, so a few weeks ago, the Friday before the Iran strike on Israel, I was in an interview with a gentleman named Above Waters, and we were talking about the markets and having a good conversation, just looking at a bunch of different charts, comparing the 1940s to now, because he was curious about my opinion on that from an astrological perspective. And so naturally, just part of the conversation, we pull up the gold chart and then the JP Morgan chart, and they were inverted. And we were both like, uh-oh, this is interesting. Something weird is happening. And that was 24 hours before the drone strike. And then a day before that, an economist I know was saying that gold was moving in ways that was scaring him. He feels like someone was buying up a bunch of gold to pay for an attack or something that the US would not be happy with.
Oh.
Sure enough, that's what happened. So if you haven't heard the saying before, you need to understand something. All wars are banker wars. Before a soldier fires a bullet, the bullet and the soldier need to be paid for.
Wow.
So that is why these war cycles are very much intertwined with money. And that is why gold is going up, is because of all of this unrest and social conflict that is at play. So studying these long-term economic cycles, they're basically the same as studying war cycles. And that's why I've been saying we've been in World War II for the past 2 years, ever since I came on this channel, because no one was saying it. And I had to.
So our World War II started with COVID, pretty much, kind of. Right.
Pretty much. World War I had a Spanish flu, and they had similar issues. So it's very interesting how we see echoes of a lot of these similar things.
Mm.
And so again, a lot of this stuff happened when Uranus was transiting the sign of Taurus in the 1930s and 40s. And what happened after that, when the war was then settled, was what was called a Bretton Woods Agreement. And since all the gold had moved to the United States and gold was money, it was then determined that, hey, the United States should let's all just use the dollar. So do you now understand why countries are accumulating gold, especially if they're enemies of the United States and they're hopefully trying to take that #1 spot? If the United States is dethroned and you have a bunch of gold and history repeats itself, then maybe you get to become the #1 great hegemon and tell everyone what to do and have everything priced in dollars. It's a very powerful position in this earthly realm to have. So that is what is going on with gold. And even though, yes, it will come down or not be as drastic, look, in May, it's probably still going to bump a little bit higher because you've got Sun,
Jupiter,
Mercury going into Taurus. We've got Sun, Jupiter. Middle of May is going to probably pretty good for a lot of things. but again, with gold being at all-time high prices, generally buying things at all-time highs is not the best time to buy it. It's generally better to buy it when, like 2 years ago,
that
saying
you're not, because there are a lot of, that I've watched them sometimes on YouTube and they say, come on, turn all your money into gold or Bitcoin or buy something because suddenly the whole system will crash. There will be your money will be worth nothing overnight. All the banks will crash at the same time. You don't see this. You see it controlled falling up, controlled deconstruction of the financial system rather than one day you wake up, all the banks are blocked, your money is worth nothing. No, your stock market is destroyed fully. There is nothing there.
it's perspective. It depends on who you are. If you're watching this video, then it's not going to catch you by surprise at all. There's plenty of people whom, like you say, they're on YouTube saying, hey, the sky is going to fall one day. And so they're aware. And they're telling people to accumulate different things. And so that goes into a topic I actually want to touch on is how do you actually beat inflation, right? Because it's such a sticky problem. And that's one of the things that actually, when I was on last October, I did see in the comment section, people were like, this guy's crazy. He's saying inflation is going to go up. Because 2023 October, when I came on, inflation was down and they were saying that they were going to do it and they were succeeding at it. But now you're hearing that it's going to go back up. Right. And so for those who know technical analysis, this is what you call a support and resistance flip. Basically, you see, in the past, we were struggling to get above 2%. Not that you would want that, even though they did. They like inflation. If you own assets, if you own a business, if you have stocks and there's inflation, your wealth goes up. Most people don't own that stuff, and that's why they're struggling. And so you can look back in history, you'll see these Fed people and business people from Wall Street saying more inflation would be a good thing. And then all of a sudden they stopped that tune real quick when they saw how the average person was hurting, because they're so far removed from how the average person lives. The average person doesn't own stocks or any of that stuff. The average person is starting to now, but they're doing it as gamblers, not as people who understand finance. They're buying meme stocks because they're just trying to survive and eat.
Yeah.
And live. And so we're all being driven into this because this is a rotten debt-based system. That's really why. But so how do we beat inflation, right? And this goes into those YouTubers saying, buy gold, buy this, gold, that. One day it's all going to shut off. There will be a time, there will be a day where they say, hey, look, use this digital currency. The debt is too much. Your debt is too much. You all have too much credit card debt, student loan debt. We have a solution. They always have a solution. And then it's going to seem like it's all of a sudden, but it's not. They have to put things in place for them to trigger that. So while it may seem like it's going to be all of a sudden, it's actually not. Okay. And so don't think that if you're not wealthy, that there's nothing you can do. The poorer you are, like I just said, the more inflation affects you. So instead of risking your money on crazy meme stocks or stuff like that, part of what you should be doing is actually holding on to cash dollars. And getting cash out of the bank. The number one thing to understand is the banks during this decade are not your friend. Okay.
Doing what?
You're poor. The banks this decade are not your friend. They continue to crash. They're systematically destroying the banks first. They have to do that before they give us a central bank digital currency.
Yes.
So the banks have to continue to implode, and you're seeing that. Which is another thing I said last year. And we're going to see more of that. We already saw one last week. We're going to see more of that throughout this year. More banks imploding and more of the
There was a new
States.
one, just a new one in
Yeah.
America, Fed something.
Yeah. So
Florida.
I think it was, I'm actually forgetting the name, but it's a big one.
Yeah.
And a lot of these bank crashes are all generally bigger than 2008.
Bigger
So,
than the big thing in 2000, but no one is talking about it.
No one's talking about it because they don't want you to talk. Right? They will blast in the media what they want you to focus on. If they don't want you to focus on it, they'll barely mention it. You know? So getting your cash out of the banks and having cash dollars in a place that's secure is important. Why? Because people need to understand that throughout this decade, money is moving from public places that we cannot trust to private places, which, hey, if it's in your hands, at least you can do something with it or not have it stolen from you in a world where the world as we know it is falling apart to be rebuilt. That's essentially what we're living through. So in such a world, that is why you want cash dollars and you want silver coins, not bars, but coins. So if you consider yourself poor, those are the things that you should be looking at. Because let's say, and this is all hypothetical, let's say the central bank digital currency is out and they say, well, we have a social credit score system now, and you need to have certain medications and scan your eye to go into this store in order to spend this money. If you don't want to do that, well, this is how black markets get created, whether it's prohibition in the 30s with alcohol or marijuana or
You think it will
mutation.
happen? So there'll be a black market, no matter.
Instantly.
Perfect.
Instantly. Always. Black markets of anything that cannot be digitized will become created. And so places in California are saying, hey, no more gasoline powered cars. Do those gasoline powered cars just disappear? No, they're still around, but how are you going to pay for them? With a central bank digital currency? No, they're digital. The algorithm will say, no, that's naughty. But if you have cash, if you have silver coins,
Yes.
then you're in a different situation. If you have silver or gold bars, people are going to say, is that 100%? I don't know. I'll give you 60% of what it's worth. And so all these people saying, go buy gold bars, there's a little nuance there, right? You're going to get ripped off in a situation where that world is falling apart. And we're saying, we don't want to use that digital currency to deal in a black market. I'm not suggesting anybody do anything illegal. All of that was hypothetical. But if you have cash, you'll be in a different situation than those who are stuck with all their money in a bank or in a digitized system. Okay. If you're wealthy, you have a longer time horizon. Good for you. Gold and real estate is what you should be looking at. Got to be a little bit careful with real estate, because during times where civilizations fall apart, they put in all kinds of laws and regulations to steal land from people. And as you guys have seen the slide, the Earth is going through changes with even just this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, whether it's them changing borders or borders physically being changed by the Earth itself. There are ways to identify what real estate is good or safe or valuable. You guys can talk to astrocartographers about that, or book a session, but you can even look at where the wealthy are buying farmland. That's an easy cheat code. So that's another thing you can do. Now, if you guys are looking to relocate, or looking at different countries, which is, I've talked about that in the past, I think that this is the year. If you have the opportunity to do it, it's probably the year to do it. You might run into the problem of how do you move money from country to country. So what you would need to do, and this is really like specific advice I would give a client in a session, but I'll just say it here, is what you would need to do is solve the problem of cash flow in that local currency. So you need an income stream tied to a hyperinflationary protected asset. So like an example could be like buying a rental property, if that's even possible. But again, that's more deep specific client session stuff. But yeah, that again, wealthy or poor, you need to be looking at things other than cash in the bank, period. So that is how to beat inflation. And of course, stocks and crypto, you guys should be looking at that as well. And you want to blend, because look, you can book a session and we can dive into that stuff, or you can just diversify and blend through those things that I just mentioned. Those are the options we have, period.
Yeah.
Okay. It's better than leaving your money in the bank and just being a sitting duck. Okay. None of this is financial advice.
I wanted to ask you something. Have you heard about an author, the book, The Great Taking? And he explains that laws over the past decades were put in place and till right now, where banks that are, or financial institutions that are collapsing, they can use loans as collateral. And so basically, even if you've paid off your house or your car, if you took it as a loan that went through a bank, even though you've paid it off, they can still take your house and your car because the bank is the final owner and it has pawned it as collateral, whatever that means. I don't, as securities or something. And I was shocked, and they said it's legal that you've been paying your house for 20 years and they take it because you took a loan through a bank. And pretty much you're only safe if you've paid cash for your house or your car. And is that true?
Technically, yes. And even technically, if you pay cash, those notes are property of the Federal Reserve, which you could argue that everything you pay with cash is owned by which is, yeah.
So
We
that's
need,
a very
we need it.
catastrophic scenario if all the banks collapse at the same time.
Well, so, but Larry Fink is talking about the tokenization of assets, which could lead to a world in which, hey, if you're a bad actor and they say, look, your score or you as a citizen is just not good or whatever, look, laws do get put in place to take things away from people. That author is correct. I haven't read the book, but yeah, those things have been and are being done continually. It's unfortunately true.
I saw a meme somewhere. Out of hundreds of trillions of planets, and we are born in one where we have to pay taxes to pedos. Which is like, really, why here?
About that. I mean, tax day just happened, right, in the States, right? And that's 2 to 4 months out of the year to bomb innocents, right? And to pay it to pedophiles, right? So it's why here.
Like, have you heard that the Biden is offering to make 50% on capital gains?
That's another thing that happens during the end of civilizations is they tax their citizens more. That's not just Biden. Canada has announced it, and you will pretty much see, other countries in the EU and the Western world pushing for more taxes, more regulation, more spying on their citizens, more looking at their citizen as the enemy because they're losing control, they're losing their grip. And so they have to tighten it. And they will do that through different means. And one of them is increasing taxes, which will also have a paradoxical effect. If you take away all the money from the wealthy who are generating money, then how are they going to pay you the next year or the year after that? And then you scare a lot of them out of the country too. They'll go where their money is treated better. We saw this with California, where Tesla left California and went to Texas. These wealthy people aren't stupid. They'll just go somewhere else, and it only makes the situation worse for Americans, in which the businesses that actually create jobs or things that people can use, then they just won't do that anymore. And that leads to, as I've predicted in the past, more stagflation, an economy that is not growing, but has a bunch of inflation because they can to print money to go to war. But they don't want us to grow, and they don't want us to do things that they consider to be inflationary. But they're doing inflationary things. So the economy stagnates, except for the war-related stuff and the tech-related stuff, which is what we need to get into next, is how the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction has led to the market we have now. And if you take a look here, you're going to see the weightings that actually make up the S&P 500. This is in part what we judge the American economy by, but it's actually weighted. So this is not a pure evaluation of the American economy. What happens is algorithms will say, hey, these stocks are performing better. Let's put more money into these stocks. And which sectors have the algorithms decided to put money into? Uranus is a technological planet, is considered the higher octave of Aquarius, a technological human sign. Humans use technology in Western astrology. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It is a gas giant. And we see now more than ever in history the greatest weighting of money put into technology. If you were actually not to look at the United States economy based on weightings, based on these algorithms, you would see that the economy is a lot weaker than it actually appears. And there's more than, I think it's like almost 40% now of US households have their money in stocks. And
Really?
this is, yeah, and this is greater than it was at the dot-com bubble crash when they were buying all those dot-coms name and then the market crashed then. So there's all this money in stocks and there's all this money in tech. And Uranus, as we've discovered, is a very volatile planet. So what does that mean for markets? A lot of up and down, a lot of volatility, a lot of not really making progress. We are at all-time highs in markets, but we were in 2021. So we basically just did this. We did a U.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go anywhere. That's what this decade is going to be like. And it is going to, for people who are used to a market that just went up, you went to work, you put your money in it, the market would just go up, you go live your life. That's not going to work this decade. All this up and down only benefits people like me who know how to deal with these scenarios and the people who are, you know, aware of what's happening and the algorithms and stuff like that.
Some kind of day trading rather than...
Yeah, more like swing trading is more of the technical thing. But yeah, it's a lot of stagflation, sideways, not, you know, a lot of up and down, a lot of Uranian volatility. This year in particular, because of the concentration in tech and the conjunction itself, you know, this let's just dive into Bitcoin. You know, Chiron, the energy of April was very interesting. Chiron was in conjunction with the sun and moon at 19 Aries, very similar astrology to the 1929 crash of the Dow Jones, actually. But that's not what we have, right? So why is that? We also had a Mars-Saturn conjunction, right? That led to war strikes and that dropped markets, but it didn't crash. Why is that? Right? And then the March video I put on, which I gave some Bitcoin predictions and stuff, I told people, hey, they're pulling money out of the system, which will probably lead to a bank collapse. And it did. Why didn't that lead to a crash in markets? And so, and then not only that, we had that great eclipse in Aries, which was just very potent. And so, and then of course the Mercury retrograde. So if you're a financial astrologer and you couldn't see markets were going down, I don't know, man. But I would have to be an idiot not to see that, hey, markets are going to go down, or maybe even think they were going to go down worse. But it's been my opinion that we didn't crash like 1929 because of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction.
Mm-hmm. It's holding in Taurus.
It's holding, yes. And what's interesting about the conjunction is in the 40s when it occurred, Saturn was there. So that actually seized the money up. Saturn is not there. And Jupiter is kind of freeing itself from Saturn, which is why I'm looking at the third quarter this year to be very just up.
For the
Very,
stock markets, for the market
yeah,
overall.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at May to be pretty choppy. You know, we've got, like I said, Sun is conjoining Uranus, Mercury entering Taurus, Sun conjoining Jupiter. This is in the middle of May. So I'm predicting that will be likely positive for price. And then June was probably going to likely be an attempt to try to leave some of that choppiness. Whether or not markets succeed in doing that in June, the astrology shows me that there's probably going to be a profit-taking opportunity towards the 20th of June. It's not financial advice, but a lot of the financial charts I've consulted this year, this is just my experience here. I've found myself telling a lot of people that they should take profits at the end of May. And this was after looking at their charts, different walks of life, different people, different ages, right? So either way, I think by the time the third quarter arrives, market should be moving much higher, but that's now in terms of the third quarter. Now, Bitcoin, for those of you who are concerned about the future of Bitcoin's bull market, yes, I'm saying things are likely going to go up. Some additional financial astrology for you. Bitcoin has its Jupiter at 29 degrees of Capricorn,
Oh,
which means
true.
Bitcoin has been and is still experiencing a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction until the year is pretty much over. Lada, would you care to explain to the kind viewer what a Pluto and Jupiter conjunction does to a chart?
Oh, that's wealth. The millionaire conjunction.
So Bitcoin's going to be all right, people. Bitcoin's sun placement is also at 13 degrees. And in astrology, we have a technique called progressions, as you know. And this is Bitcoin's 15th year. So if you progress the sun 1 year, we have a Sun-Jupiter conjunction by progression both this year and, interestingly, next year as well. So
big rise, actually. It will be good.
Now, here's the catch. Is transiting Saturn is conjoining Bitcoin's natal Uranus in the 12th house. And so we actually saw some of this month. Is Uranus is the energy of being new and different. And this superseding the rules in a revolutionary way, right? Being different, being yourself, being unique, right? And Saturn is, okay, here's what the rules are. Here's what you get if you follow them. Here's what you get if you don't follow them. And Saturn came and did that to Bitcoin and to crypto this month, okay? And that's what I saw, is the individualistic and freedom-oriented nature of crypto was really attacked. The 12th house is bosses, jails, undoing, and things we don't see quite clearly. Well, they used a vague law that they passed in 2022 under the Taurus-Scorpio axis of eclipses then, to throw people in jail for having crypto wallets, which they haven't even declared as money, but you're using that 2022 law to say people are money laundering, but it's not money, which is interesting. So they're using this unclear law to throw people in jail and to stop and suppress crypto for unclear reasons that are attacking specifically the Uranian, individualistic, freedom-oriented side of crypto.
Yeah.
That is
deregulation,
literal astrology manifesting itself out. So what isn't being suppressed in crypto is things like centralized exchanges like Coinbase, which is actually being sued right now and has been being sued. They're fine with the centralized stuff, but it's the stuff that's outside of their view that they have a problem with. They've always had a problem with that. And so Binance was a centralized exchange. That's gone now. We have Coinbase, and all of this has been initiated under this conjunction. It's a strong reaction to the war. Gold went up before the attack. Remember, Russia just released a statement saying Bitcoin goes against their national interest. This is just my opinion. I think with how hard the United States and the EU cracked down on crypto this month, that this is a psyop by Russia to try to take some of.
Oh, I lost connection. Hello. I'm not sure if it's still recording, but if you're seeing me, maybe we dropped Sama, or maybe I got dropped out. I'm not sure. But I think, yeah, I'm waiting still. Hopefully he'll come back. Sorry, you're back.
Yeah, I don't know if that was me or you, but yeah.
Might have been me as well. I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I think are we recording still now? We're good now?
Yes, it's recording.
But yeah, I think Russia putting that statement out was it's kind of like a chess move, but that's just my opinion. It's not an official statement.
There was something, one of the predictions that communism's attempt will fail, because we know that the globalism pushes kind of a new attempt at communism.
Yeah.
why do you see that around 2033 that will fail?
So that is when Saturn and Uranus conjoin.
Uh,
And we kind of have to, not kind of, laws and things have been put in place for us to go through this process. And since there seems to be a reaction to where people don't even really want, even in the States, there's a lot of people who can kind of see through what is happening and they push back against a lot of this stuff, which is why like the dislike button on YouTube disappeared and the World Economic Forum's kind of changing their tune and modifying some things around, but the plan is still the same, you know. And so what shifts then is instead of government doing these things directly, they do it through what's called private public partnerships. And so they do it through private companies. And so instead of, let's say, a government spying on people directly like they might have done in the past, they might do it through a company like a Lockheed Martin or a Palantir and have it just be through private secret contracts and work it out that way. So we are going to end up in a situation where these public-private partnerships essentially coerce people into a form of communism that we are led to believe is beneficial and works better for us. In order for that to occur, there needs to be a central bank digital currency. And that is what Bitcoin has been Trojan horsed for. I'll just say it. You know, let's 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 dive into that. Let's dive into that because look,
you think it was done as a freedom thing, but actually is.
I'm gonna break all this down, right? Because we have a golden opportunity here with Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Taurus that Bitcoin could have provided, but it no longer can. This is an opportunity that crypto can provide now, but we might be missing the boat. We'll see. We'll see what humanity does. Now, you, I'm sure, have heard some astrologers, maybe you've even taken a look at the Bitcoin chart, and you're probably like, this looks weird. This is mysterious.
Capricorn. It's Capricorn.
There's some problems with this chart, right?
Yes.
And the chart on the midheaven 2 years ago, remember that? And it's just like, what's going on? But the price still keeps going up. And so a lot of you have just quit. You're just like, I'm not gonna, this is too confusing, right? And so maybe then people watching have seen me say, hey, this is gonna keep going up and it's gonna get accepted by the BlackRock ETF. And you've seen all of that come true and the price has gone up. So it's been very confusing for people. I've met a lot of astrologers, right? Because a lot of us want the world to be black and white, so to speak. So they struggle with things like this, where if Bitcoin is bad or shady, shouldn't the price go down? Why is the price going up if Bitcoin is bad? I'm here to tell you that you live in the upside down. It doesn't quite work how you think it should work, right? And just because the price of something is going up doesn't mean that it's going to stay up forever, nor does it mean that it's good. It just means the price is going up. I would say that those astrologers are correct. That the long term of future Bitcoin is questionable. But what I do as a financial astrologer, particularly during this decade, is I'm helping people make money in financial markets. I'm an investor, I'm a trader, as well as an astrologer. And those astrologers, no offense, they're just astrologers. And many of them will say that, like, they'll say, I don't have the technical expertise to say beyond what I just see as an astrologer. And that's fair for them to say. But they're also correct in the issues that they see. That doesn't mean that the price is going to go down, though. Okay. The tragedy of crypto is what you're seeing is a lot of people are drawn to it for the money when it could be freeing us, but we don't understand it. It's greed being weaponized against us to not see the opportunity. That is what is happening with crypto. Is you can get rich, but you're going to end up in a cage. That's the setup. And if we don't wake up, what we're doing with crypto and AI, it's like inviting the devil into your home and asking him to perform rectal surgery on you under a blood moon eclipse with a chainsaw, blindfolded. It's like we are really screwing ourselves here. And we're confused. And it's like we're in the mouth of something that's just putting all these laws together and just waiting to close on us.
I know.
And so we're hoping and cheering a lot of the people like $1 million Bitcoin, $2 million Bitcoin. A world like that would be so inflationary.
Mm.
But you're talking like $100 eggs, and you really want $1 million Bitcoin, huh? And so like all these like young millennial idiots who just want Bitcoin to go to millions so they can buy a Lambo and bang those OnlyFans girls or whatever, like the world they're thinking of, like what it takes, the inflation, it's not a world you want to live in. Bitcoin is an inflation vacuum. All of these assets are, like I said, as long as these people continue to print money, it's going to go into assets and it's going to go into Bitcoin, probably more, and crypto, probably more than almost anything. That's what history so far has shown with Bitcoin. It's just sucking up printed money through inflation. And so how is the government going to manage people in a world like that? With AI and robots in a bunker, maybe? Like it's not going to be a pleasant place to live. So what we need to look at, see if I pull the white paper up here, where do I have it? Bitcoin. This is the white paper. So what is a white paper? A white paper is what is written by people who create cryptos, technological software. All right, Bitcoin white paper. Anyone can look this up. All right, this is a government site, and you guys can see this. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. If you click on it, that's what it says, peer-to-peer. That means me to you, like me to you, Lada, not peer to let me send money to Coinbase, but Coinbase needs to see my ID, my driver's license, and know my address. But now I can't send more than $5,000 because we have limits due to money laundering. Oh, and you can't send money to Russians because, well, we're at war with Russia. Why are you trying to send money to Russians anyway? What is this money for anyway? That's the world we live in with crypto now.
So
I don't
crypto
see
super regulated now.
crypto, the originator of Bitcoin, this was his vision. Is
Anyone
that
can
it would be peer to peer, meaning I could just send you money.
Yes.
And when it was created, that is what they were doing. Bitcoin was actually better than fiat currency at the time when it came out.
But now
They
it's
were able to just send Bitcoin to somebody, and that was that. You can't really do that anymore.
wow.
You hear Larry Fink saying Bitcoin is digital gold. And that is a complete opposite from what I just showed you. Peer-to-peer is not digital gold. I didn't see in there that, hey, I'm creating digital gold so that Larry Fink can make your lives less free with the tokenization of everything. That's not what that paper says. But where are we now? Ethereum ETF is probably going to get approved and end up in Larry Fink's hands. Vanguard and Fidelity and BlackRock own or are in control of about 88% of the money in the world. And now that control is wrapping themselves around digital gold that is not really meant to be transacted the way it was back in 2009 and 2010. Now we have things like Venmo, we have things like Cash App, we have a whole bunch of things that work better than Bitcoin. We do. And the central bank digital currencies that they're making work better than all of those things. So that's part of the trap, is it's going to be better working. In a world where we actually need Bitcoin as an alternative, Larry is setting this up to be asset storage for all this tokenization of the world. So we've come a long way in the wrong direction, and we are running out of time. And so now you understand why the price of Bitcoin is going up and why everyone's excited about it. It's a Trojan horse. We are meant to pay attention to that part of the narrative rather than the original ethos of the thing, which happens. It's what's happened to America, right? It's what happened to American and American money too. If you look at the founding fathers of America, they hated bankers.
Yes,
There's so
yes.
many
They
quotes
were
about
trying to
them, all
protect
this
America
trash
from the
about
bank.
bankers. They said if bankers take over this country, everything we fought for will be taken away from our children. That is what they said, word for
Exactly
word.
what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing with Bitcoin is similar story. And so my concern is if some people have never heard of this, you've probably heard of it. I'm sure you've read the Hegelian dialectic, where there's a thesis and an antithesis, which leads to a solution, right? So if a central bank digital currency is what they want us to have, but we don't want it, but we're convinced to want Bitcoin, but they already have Bitcoin designed to where they can track Bitcoin.
Mhm.
They've had it tracked. Here's the other thing I was supposed to show you guys is those of you who aren't familiar with the history. So this guy or group or whatever with this intent handed over the Bitcoin project to a guy named Gavin Andresen, who in 2011 decided to visit the CIA and give a presentation about Bitcoin at the CIA headquarters.
Mhm.
Bitcoin has never been the same. I don't care what, I don't know what happened there or what. I know this says that, hey, look, it's going to generate conspiracy theories, this, that, or whatever. I'm not here to tell you a conspiracy theory. I'm here to say that this meeting happened and this is not what we see anymore. We see Larry Fink saying
Yeah.
that, hey, this should be digital gold. And not only that, but this gentleman,
But
through the MIT lab, MIT is a institution here in the States. This lab actually received money through Jeffrey and through Bill. Jeffrey had so much power, he was able to just say, I'm donating on behalf of Bill to this lab for investment funds. And they actually spent money from Jeffrey to actually work on Bitcoin. So this article's here for you guys to look at it if you want to do your research. So if this gentleman's hands were on Bitcoin after this, and this is no longer what we hear about Bitcoin, we hear that it's digital gold. You guys can come up with your own conclusions, but I have my conclusions about what's going on here.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
We are being manipulated by our own greed to pay attention to number go up instead of you can free yourself from a debt-based system that has enslaved you, has enslaved humans for a long time. And there's a window of opportunity for humans to come to a critical mass and say, we would rather use money that is real money that I can just send to somebody without the input of so-and-so. And instead, we're focused on number go up. Not financial advice. This is just one man's opinion, an observation of the events as they've played out.
Thank you so much, Sama. It's been. Do you have more? Sorry, I'm not sure.
I could keep going, but like, man, there's so much to talk about. I'll just end by saying, I think that this is kind of the last year of normalcy in some ways. I have a similar feeling of, not similar feeling, but 2019, right? That was a year in which if you lived through 2020, you know that life before 2020, we can't go back to that. It will never be the same, right? From the second quarter of 2025 through 2028, we'll have Saturn and Neptune conjoining at 0 degrees of Aries. Uranus trine Pluto in air signs. Their midpoints are going to be at 0 degrees of Aries. The lunar north node through Capricorn and Aquarius. Right, if you guys have, let me see if I have it here. You guys have seen, you guys can go to my Instagram and look at this. This won't load because it's going to tell me to log in, but there's a line here that says the trend is transitioning, and this is the sign Taurus here, and that's Aries. The nodal trend as we move through Aries means we're going through a transitionary period. You can't see it, but it says prices up here and prices down. We are currently through that transitionary period as a node moves through Aries. So as we get to the node in Aquarius here,
Okay.
prices go down. We go through a difficult time on the planet. Now, that's just a nodal cycle, and this is particularly affecting American stocks in particular. But we're going to go through that during all these other aspects that are happening as well. This is going to be a very challenging time for humanity, or should I say, challenging times for the current version of humanity and for the new version of humanity that may appear as well. More on that in other videos, but the point is that we were not going to be able to go back to how life is after 2024. So this third quarter, yeah, avoid retrogrades, and yeah, the conjunction will mess with travel plans and weather to some degree. But if you can get out and enjoy this year, I would encourage you to do so, because once the election season really gets going in the United States, and then we get into 2025, life will not be the same once again.
Bunker time, bunker time.
War, biotech, UFOs, gravity-defying stuff, technocratic space race, and visitors and all kinds of stuff. So enjoy the year, friends. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Lada, and we'll
Thank
do
you
this
so
more
much.
often, more soon, because there was
Absolutely.
a lot more I had to share. But yeah,
I'll
we'll
put
just
the link below for Sama if you want to contact him, get in touch with him in the description. So thank you again, Sama, for your insight, incredible information, and for the financial advice that you gave us. Again, looking forward to having you, and thank you everyone for joining us and watching.
everyone. And
Bye.
better